Okay, we talked about this formula last time. This formula. Um, this is in fact interest rate parity. But if we juggle this formula a little bit, we could say um, f0 times e to the LFT is going to be equal to s0 times e to the LT, right? Now that's this diagram. Suppose you have 1,000 units of foreign currency at time 0. You could change this foreign currency into domestic dollar currency as of now, and then invest in domestic, assuming that domestic currency is US dollar. You put those money into US bank, and then it'll grow to 1,000 as 0 times e to the RT at time t, right? The alternative might be you put this 1,000 unit of foreign currency in foreign bank. Then that's going to grow to 1,000 times e to the LFT at the end of time t. And then at the end of time t, you convert this foreign currency into domestic currency US dollar. Then you have to you have to multiply by f0 here. These two have to be equal to each other, otherwise there is an arbitrage opportunity. Okay, I put some example here. Suppose you have 1,000 yen and current exchange rate is 100 yen per dollar, whereas future exchange rate is 95 yen per dollar, and assume that time to maturity is 1. If domestic interest rate is 6.3% and foreign domestic here is American interest rate, and Japanese interest rate is 1%, then roughly these two have to be equal to each other. Okay, so what he's saying is when there are interest rate difference, you might think that by putting your money in a country where interest rate is higher, you could make more money. But this equation, which is also known as interest rate parity, is saying that that's not going to be the case, because exchange rate is gonna adjust in such a way that these two equal to each other. In other words, this equation holds. From now we're going to talk about future and forward price upon consumption asset. Unlike investment asset, here consumption and investment assets are related to underlying asset. If underlying assets are investment asset, then equality holds. In other words, arbitrage argument holds. But in a case of consumption asset, equality may not hold. So we end up having this inequality. The reason is, in a case of consumption asset, people don't. Okay, in order to get rid of this inequality, people have to short selling relatively expensive spot asset, while selling. Let me put it. Let me say it again. If this inequality holds, then in order to get rid of this inequality, people has to buy this futures contract. Simultaneously, they have to short selling the spot contract. But in the case of consumption good or consumption asset, that's not going to happen because they have a more attachment for this spot consumption asset. So since this futures contract, buying this futures contract is not going to be the same as buying spot consumption asset. So people don't want to buying futures contract and simultaneously short selling the spot contract. So since people don't want to do that, this inequality won't disappear. It's gonna stay as it is. Okay. So that's why we observing inequality in a case of consumption asset, and also in consumption asset, we also observe storage cost. If storage costs can be represented as a storage yield U, then storage cost is going to be represented in this way. The reason why it is added to this risk-free interest rate is think of it this way: if you're buying a futures contract, you're saving a storage cost. So that's why this storage cost has to be added. I mean, there's something good in having this futures contract. Okay, and if this storage cost can be calculated in terms of present value, it could be represented in this way. Okay, this is storage cost yield. I mean, represented in terms of yield, but this is present value of storage cost. Okay. So far we've been talking about cost of carry formula. Here we generalize the formula. The cost of carry is represented as C, and this is storage cost plus interest rate minus income earned. Could be interest income or dividend yield. So C could be saying that R minus S plus could be Q or could be something else. And for an investment asset, we observe equality, but for a consumption asset, since people prefer spot contract better for consumption reason than futures contract, there is an inequality. I mean, like I said on a previous screen, people don't want to short selling spot contract and buying futures contract. In other words, futures contract cannot substitute spot contract. So the point is, in a case of consumption asset, we are observing inequality. Okay. Now, convenience yield is why that make this inequality equality. we could represent this as this by using this convenience yield y. Okay, I'm going to stop here.